What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I, Graham GSM Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network as well as on Impact Plus. Today we're talking WWE Evolution 2018 from 1 year ago today, the one and only installment as of right now anyway. Hopefully many more to come, but as of right now I've heard no announcement about a second installment of the Evolution pay-per-view, which is a big shame because I thought this show then, and after watching it back this morning, was the best pay-per-view they produced in 2018. And they had some good shows last year, but the best main roster pay-per-view was undoubtedly, at least in my opinion, Evolution 2018. So we'll talk all about that here in today's show. I did mention on WrestleRant yesterday that I would be breaking down, hopefully today, the latest episode of WWE The Day Of, focusing on SmackDown's 20-year anniversary. Now, I had read somewhere, I think on the WWE Network news website, that they'd be uploading that to the network on Sunday, premiering at 8 p.m. As of right now, I have yet to see it anywhere on the network. I have yet to see it on WWE's YouTube channel, so it's either not happening or it got delayed or whatever. And even if it did air, there's no guarantee that it's going to be any more than 5 minutes. Because the last WWE Day Of video they did on Hell in the Cell a few weeks ago was all of 5 minutes long. And I'm not reviewing if it's only 5 minutes long, so if it's going to be around 15 to 20 minutes like the other WWE Day Of episodes they did a few months ago were, like, what was it? SummerSlam, I know, is kind of a lengthy amount. They did another one I talked about here on the channel a while ago. Maybe Clash of Champions, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that, or it was something else. I don't remember. They've done a number of them, but a few of them have been longer than 15 minutes, which is why I review them. If they're not, probably not that good of a chance I'll be talking about it here on the channel. But nonetheless, we do have a new Table for 3 tonight as I record this after Raw on the network, focusing on the APA, JBL, and Ron Simmons, and Teddy Long. That is happening as advertised the night after Raw, so looking forward to that. My review should be up tomorrow here on the channel. But in the meantime, though, today I thought I would be talking about, if I didn't have a new network special to review for Network and Chill, I thought I would be talking about Halloween Havoc 1991. After breaking down Halloween Havoc 1990 yesterday on the 29-year anniversary. But then I remembered, holy shit, today is the 1-year anniversary of Evolution. Why not watch and review that instead? Because it was a great show. Now, it's been a while since I've reviewed any of the WWE main roster shows. I've reviewed every WWE main roster pay-per-view from the very beginning in 1985 or 84, one of the two, through 2017. I have yet to review any 2018 pay-per-views. It's just a matter of time, really. They will be up at some point, maybe not anytime soon. It's really just a matter of, sitting down to watch them and review them. They are long shows, which is probably why I keep putting them off. But I made a note to watch Evolution because it was a really, really good show. And the first ever all-women's pay-per-view they ever did, and so far the only one they've ever done. I know Impact has done some before. Other promotions have done a lot of them. WWE, the main roster, had never done one until just a year ago, which, again, a lot late. Better late than never, but it really should have happened several years ago. But then again, timing is everything, because I cannot imagine an all-women's pay-per-view 10 years ago when we had the Divas division, and it was absolute shit with people like Kelly and a lot of those women got better. Kelly got better. Candice Michelle got better. Melina got better. A lot of those women weren't half bad, but the division was fucking deplorable back then. Women's wrestling was, and still is, arguably the shit in 2018 and even now in 2019. At least in WWE. 2019, I feel like they've really taken it for granted. And yeah, they're kind of back at the forefront with the 4 horsewomen, but they need more women than just Becky, Lynch, Bayley, Sasha, and Charlotte to build their Raw and SmackDown women's divisions around. And a big reason why this show worked is because they didn't solely revolve around the women of Raw and SmackDown. They had women from NXT, NXT UK, they had legends come back. So because of that, it was a real success. And it's a lot like the Women's Royal Rumble a few years ago, where they largely relied on women from the past to sell people on that match. But since then, they've added a lot of new women to the Raw and SmackDown women's division, so it worked in 2019. But if they are going to do another Evolution pay-per-view, I would assume that they will not rely as much on the past as they would on the present and future, you know? They have a lot of women that they can build these shows around. It's really just a matter of making them matter, really. Making people care about them, and it's not their fault. But WWE, like I said, in the last year alone, has done a piss-poor job of making women's wrestling matter, outside of the obvious suspects of Bayley, Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha. You know, I know the women main evented WrestleMania 35. I was there for it. It was an amazing experience, an incredible accomplishment. But since then, though, WWE has done nothing to make you care about the women's divisions on Raw and on SmackDown. Ronda Rousey left. She's taken time off to have a baby, which I'm not sure what the update on that is. She'll be gone for a little while longer, if not longer than that. Nia Jax got hurt. Ruby Riot got hurt. Sasha took time off for a couple months. You know, I know there's been a lot of factors, but they are still left with a lot of women other than the ones I just mentioned. They still have, you know, Charlotte, Bayley, Becky, who all matter currently. But beyond them, who's a real player in either women's division right now? Mandy and Sonya, they've improved. They're not real players in the SmackDown women's division just yet. Kairi Sane and Asuka are complete afterthoughts. I know they're the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They have done nothing with those women in the last year on the main roster. Absolutely nothing. I know Asuka went on to win the SmackDown Women's Championship later on in 2018, early 2019. Beyond that, though, and despite being one half of the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, which doesn't really mean anything because those titles don't mean anything currently, they have done jack shit with Asuka. Asuka, Kairi, Lana sucks anyway. Dana Brooke really isn't all that good. Sarah Logan, I would reckon, is pretty good, but she's been relegated to main event purgatory for months now. Liv Morgan, not a huge fan of hers. I never really thought she was that good, but they could also be doing more with Liv Morgan than they are currently. But you get what I'm saying here. There's a lot of women they have that they're not doing enough with, to the point where I'm not surprised that they have yet to bring back the Evolution pay-per-view. Did they only really do it because they knew they had Ronda Rousey and they could build a show around her? Probably. And again, they built the main event of WrestleMania around Ronda Rousey. Would the women have main evented WrestleMania without Ronda? Probably not. At some point, maybe with the Four Horsewomen, but I think it would have taken even longer for them to do so than it did without Ronda Rousey. And that's not Ronda's fault. That's not the current women of WWE's fault. That's how WWE views their women's division. Always has and always will. I know it's obviously improved in the last 4 or 5 years, but by and large, though, they have not done enough to make this women's division matter. And they have the talent. They absolutely do. The sad thing is that NXT is loaded with amazing female talent, arguably the best women's division in any company right now. But when they get called up to that main roster, it's all downhill from there. But anyway, let's get back to what this video is all about, Evolution 2018. There was a pre-show. I didn't watch it. I don't think there were any matches on the pre-show. It says here on Wiki they taped Rhea Ripley versus Dakota Kai for the NXT UK Women's Championship. That never made the air. I don't remember seeing that anywhere. So it's not like they put that out as an extra on the YouTube channel, as far as I know anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't remember seeing Ripley and Kai anywhere, except on an episode of NXT UK like weeks later. But that was completely unrelated to this. The funny thing is that, I mean, it never made the air anyway, so it didn't matter. But the funny thing is that when Evolution happened, the NXT UK Women's Championship wasn't even a thing yet. It wasn't even announced on NXT UK yet. They taped months of TV for NXT UK without airing it anywhere on the network until like October. So it didn't air on the network until like late 2018, until like a month or so after this. So people already knew that Rhea Ripley was going to become the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion. I just thought that was funny, but I'm sure that was a good match though. We kicked off the actual show with a tag team match. Trish Stratus and Lita reuniting to take on the duo of Mickie James and Alicia Fox with Alexa Bliss in their corner. So if you can recall, Alexa Bliss was supposed to be in this match. She got hurt, well before the show even happened, but they did not announce it until like a day or two before the pay-per-view. Maybe that Friday, because I remember reading it on a Friday or Saturday night, probably Friday, that they were replacing Alexa with Alicia Fox because Alexa wasn't cleared to compete yet. I think it was a concussion. She was out for a while. She didn't wrestle until maybe the Women's Rumble, like months later, which sucked. So obviously she was a bit heartbroken over not being able to compete on the show, face, one of her dream rivals and Trish Stratus. And they had a pretty good feud going into the show. The issue is that the only selling point of Trish coming back was the fact that she was coming back. Alexa and Trish had some good interactions and exchanges on the mic leading up to the pay-per-view, but the match on paper was not all that exciting. So the best thing they could have done was combine the Mickey and Alexa matches versus Trish and Lita to make it into one giant tag team match. So we had Alicia Fox instead, a match that I definitely was not looking forward to at all coming into the show, but after watching it the first time and watching it back again earlier today, it was a really good match. This match was better than it had any right to be, I'll tell you that right now. Trish and Lita were out of the ring for a while. Yeah, they were in the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble match, albeit not for long though. I thought they looked really good here. Trish and Mickey had their moment, obviously rekindling their rivalry after so many years. I mean, they also interacted in the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble match too. But they had their moment here to shine. I thought that was really cool. Lita looked really good. And Lita has been out of the ring a lot more than Trish has been. Lita, aside from the Women's Rumble, I don't think it really wrestled a formal match for WWE in like over a decade. Yeah, she faced Heath Slater on Raw, fucking Raw 1000, who cares? It was hardly a match. Beyond that, though, I don't think she's really wrestled since 2006 when she lost to Mickie James and left the WWE. But I thought this was a really good match. The crowd was super into this, and I should mention this too. I love the production for this show. I think it was because WWE either had another show going on at this point, or they were getting ready for Raw on Monday. There was some sort of production error or whatever, where they didn't have their normal set. They didn't have their normal production team. So I think they utilized, if I'm not mistaken, the people from NXT in an NXT-like set, like what you would see for a takeover for Evolution. And it worked. It really, really worked. And Evolution wasn't selling all that well going in. You know, it said 10,000 seats sold on Wikipedia. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. There were a lot of seats still open the day of the weekend of the show. I remember seeing that online. But this crowd is rowdy all night long. They were into everything. They were a great atmosphere. They were a great audience. They were really, really electric all night long. So I really appreciated that. They turned this show from a good show into a great show. From how they were hot for everything, they were really loud. They gave people that I thought they wouldn't give two shits about some great reactions, including Molly Holly in the fucking Battle Royal after this. I thought Molly Holly would come out to friggin' crickets. Not because she's not good, she's a legend, but a lot of people from today's generation of fans don't know who Molly Holly is. Yeah, she was in the Rumble again, but beyond that, how much have we really seen or heard of Molly Holly in the last 10 years? I would argue not that much. But yeah, this crowd was great. I don't know if it was a smarky crowd, it was a mostly female crowd. I remember reading at the time there were a lot of like women and kids in the crowd more than usual, which was cool. It was kind of a glorified house show, but in a good way. Like, Crown Jewel was a glorified house show because it didn't mean anything. But this was a glorified house show in terms of production, and it was cool because it was different than what you would normally see from a WWE pay-per-view. Not every fucking show needs to have the bright lights and, you know, all the pomp and circumstance and the pyro, which all helps. But if the show's not good and the crowd doesn't care, none of that shit matters. See any episode of Raw in the last fucking 5 years, you know? But anyway, I thought that was a really good opening match with Trish and Lita picking up the victory. We then had a 20-woman battle royal where the winner earned a future women's championship match. So you had to know the past women were not going to be winning this thing. But it was cool to see them nonetheless. So involved in this thing, and this is the order of elimination here, we had Iconics, Peyton Royce, Billie Kay. They came out last, cut their promo on the rest of the women, saying that they were going to win the whole thing before getting chucked out immediately. So they did that spot with the Iconics, which worked well. We had Molly Holly, who was out very, very soon, way too soon, I would argue. But it was cool to see her and to hear her get a great reaction was heartwarming. We had Kelly Kelly in this thing, Tori Wilson, now a WWE Hall of Famer, Sonya Deville, Alundra Blaze, Maria Kanellis, Lana, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, Michelle McCool, Naomi, Carmella, Ivory, Asuka, Tamina, Zelina Vega, and Ember Moon, and Nia Jax, who ended up winning the whole thing. This was easily the weakest match on the show, but far from bad. I'm not a big fan of Battle Royals in WWE because they're largely throwaway. They don't really mean anything. But I thought this had some fun moments. You know, Carmella dancing with Ivory was cool. Nia Jax and Tamina Tease going at it. I think that was before they became a tag team on the main show on Raw and on SmackDown. Or on Raw, rather, at this point. So that was cool to see them kind of go at it for a little bit. Sonya eliminated Mandy Rose, which was kind of surprising. Or I think Mandy actually eliminated Sonya. That was the way that it went down. Yeah, Mandy eliminated Sonya, which was interesting. Yeah, it was cool to see Ivory in there for as long as she was. Molly Holly would have been cool to see in there a little longer, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Ember Moon got a great reaction down the stretch. I really hoped and thought she would win. Unfortunately, she didn't. Asuka and Ember Moon had their moment too. I thought that was cool, kind of harkening back on their history from NXT, which people remembered, obviously, which was cool. I mean, albeit it was only a year earlier, but there's a lot of people, you would be surprised, from the main roster, the main viewing audience that watch Raw and SmackDown that don't watch NXT. Or at least not used to. They didn't used to before it went to USA Network. So for people to remember and acknowledge and appreciate the history that Asuka and Ember Moon had, that they kind of played off of here in this match, I thought was really cool. Zelina Vega tried to play spoiler by pretending, or at least she thought that she eliminated Nia Jax and Ember. She didn't. She got shucked out by Nia Jax, which I think she got hurt from, if I'm not mistaken. I think she was off TV for a few weeks because she got legitimately hurt from that spot. I might be wrong. For some reason, I remember that being the case, though. But yeah, this was fine. I wasn't a big fan of Nia Jax winning, but it did make sense because she had unfinished business with Ronda Rousey from the Money in the Bank match, from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view months earlier. So it made sense to revisit that feud in time for TLC that December. We had the finals of the 2018 Mae Young Classic between Toni Storm and Io Shirai. This was a really good match. The crowd was relatively quiet for it, not because it was a bad match by any means. I thought they worked really well together. The crowd just didn't really know who they were, so I'm not surprised. But it was cool to see them on the pay-per-view, to see them in front of a main roster audience. They got great reactions for the most part throughout the match. Again, the crowd was largely quiet up until certain points down the stretch, but they did come alive in the final few minutes. Toni Storm ended up emerging victorious as the 2018 Mae Young Classic winner. Probably the right winner. Kairi Sane won the year before. Would have been, not to say they can't go with two Japanese winners in a row, but it would have been repetitive. So I'm glad Toni Storm got her shot. She was in it the year before. She lost. So for her to win here made sense. And Io Shirai's been shining bright. Despite not winning here, she's been shining bright in NXT. She went heel only a few months ago. I mean, she was doing well for the most part in NXT. She came close to winning the Mae Young Classic. She went for the NXT, I almost said NXT UK, for the NXT Women's Championship a few times earlier this year. She lost, but her heel turn has been the best thing that could have ever happened to Io Shirai, easily. And she's been great. And Toni Storm's been really, really good so far in NXT UK. She was not the inaugural NXT UK champion, the women's champion. That was Rhea Ripley, obviously, as I said earlier. She was the second ever NXT UK women's champion. And she lost the title to, what's her name? Kaylee Ray. Kaylee Ray. I get the two mixed up all the time. Kaylee Ray. She lost the title to a TakeOver Cardiff just a few short months ago. And I don't think she's been seen since. So that would lead me to believe that she is NXT bound. And maybe we see a revisiting of this rivalry at some point in the not-so-distant future between Toni Storm and Io Shirai. We then had a 6-woman tag team match, which, again, on paper, had no reason to be as good as it was. I really just did not give a shit about this feud going in, because we had seen Sasha Banks and Bayley feuding with the Riot Squad for fucking months. So this match meant nothing to me going in. But it ended up being very enjoyable. Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Natalya beating the Riot Squad. Logical outcome, good match, good energy. Everyone played their roles well. The Riot Squad were the ultimate fucking job squad. Even in 2018, they were constantly losing. At least they were on TV at that point. Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, despite being completely healthy right now, are nowhere to be seen on WWE TV. But this was a good match. Again, better than it had any right to be. For the NXT Women's Championship, we had Shayna Baszler taking on the then-champion Kairi Sane. In another really good match, they got about 12 minutes, a decent amount of time. It wasn't as good as their TakeOver Brooklyn 4 match from a few months earlier. I was there for that one. This was still very good, not as great as the other match, but it was quite good. They have always had that great chemistry. They were in the finals of the Mae Young Classic a year earlier. They had a few matches on NXT TV, so again, they had that great chemistry going for them anyway. And it was a good match. The finish came when Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir interfered to help Sheena win the match and regain the title, in the process becoming the first ever and only, so far anyway, 2-time NXT Women's Champion. And she's been the champion ever since. Shayna Baszler has been the champion for a full year. And I would say, not many people get to do that, but, fucking The New Day were champions for over a year. Pete Dunne was champion for over a year. Asuka was champion for over a year. So it's really not that rare anymore for someone to hold the championship for over a year. But still, I mean, it was an incredible accomplishment so far for her to hold that championship for so long. And I just put out an article earlier today. I won't spoil the ranking, but Shayna ranks high up there, in my opinion, as one of the best NXT women's champions they've ever had. You know, she's knocked off some great opposition in Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Mia Yim, Bianca Belair. She faced Candice LeRae a few weeks ago on NXT TV. She's feuding with a variety of women right now. She has a lot going for her as the NXT Women's Champion. But this show did mark the debut, the WWE on-screen debut, technically, because they were on SummerSlam 2014 years earlier in the crowd, and WrestleMania 31 for that matter. But other than that, this marked the on-air debut in WWE for Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke. And they have interfered in a lot of Shayna's matches over the past 6 months, over the last year, really, which has kind of gotten old after a while. But still, it's cool to see them as a unit on NXT TV. They make the perfect sense to be cronies for Shayna as champion. And if it wasn't for them, she probably would have lost the championship a long time ago. But I think they have a great act going right now in NXT. And I thought this was a good match. And a lot of people were disappointed that Kairi Sane's run was cut so short after just 2 months. But again, I thought it was more important to get the belt on Shayna. Kairi ended up getting called up to the main roster, which may not have been for the better, just because she hasn't done a hell of a whole lot. She is one half of the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. But again, those titles really mean nothing. But I thought this was a good match, and Shayna, as of right now, is still the NXT Women's Champion a full year later. For the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship, we had Becky Lynch defending the title against Charlotte Flair in only the second ever last woman standing match. The first ever on the main roster, the second one ever, including NXT. Asuka and Nikki Cross had one in 2017 on an episode of NXT TV. This would have been the second one. We've only had one since, with Lacey Evans versus Natalya on an episode of Raw a few weeks ago. Oh, whoop-de-doo. Who gives a shit? But this was great. This was an amazing match. I would argue if this wasn't the match of the year for WWE in 2018, it was easily the best women's match of 2018 for the women. And a lot of people would go on the record, and I may not disagree with them, in calling this the best main roster women's match in WWE history. Now, again, that's including a lot there. From years past and in recent years, we've had a lot of great women's matches, but this may have trumped them all. This was really, really, really good stuff. They made great use of that stipulation, which I'm not a big fan of. I think last man, last woman standing matches can get tedious after a while. Case in point, Natalya and Lacey Evans from a few weeks ago on Raw. That bored me to fucking tears. This match was constantly entertaining. They beat the shit out of each other with kendo sticks, chairs, ladders, tables. It was basically a TLC match without the championship hanging high above the ring. This was an amazing match. I thought this was incredibly well done. Their chemistry has always been great anyway. And this was before they started having matches like every single fucking week. Like they're still feuding technically today, even a year later, after having a match on the WWE Draft Show 2 weeks ago. But this was amazing stuff, and I thought both women had great performances here. Becky pulled off some really cool spots, jumping off the ladder on top of Charlotte, through the announcer table, beating the shit out of each other with the kendo sticks. They took a lot of crazy bumps here, and they all paid off. Nothing I would be like, oh, God, they shouldn't have done that because they're women. No, everything they did here I thought made sense. It wasn't too reckless. It was a nice, safe match, while at the same time feeling intense, entertaining, and exciting. I thought this was phenomenal. Again, one of, if not, maybe not the best women's match I've ever seen. I will still give the nod to Bayley and Sasha from TakeOver Brooklyn, the initial one in 2015. But this comes close. If it's not trumping it, it definitely comes close. And Becky winning was merely the icing on the cake, because I really thought Charlotte would lose, I really thought Charlotte would win. The story they were telling after Charlotte, she won the title at SummerSlam, but she was immediately betrayed by Becky. Becky wins the belt at Hell in a Cell, and she failed to regain the title at Super Showdown. So, from a storyline standpoint, it only made sense for Charlotte to win here and get the belt back. But they didn't do that, which I thought was great. So, I really love this match. My only nitpick of it was the fact that it wasn't the main event. I understood that they sold this show, they built this show around Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella for the Raw Women's Championship in the main event. But as far as match quality, as good as that was, this was far better. And maybe it worked out that it wasn't the main event because it added to the mystique and the magic of the match and the crowd wasn't as tired. And, the main event, honestly, to its credit, and we might as well talk about it now, for the Raw Women's Championship, Rousey versus Nikki, was not as bad as some people made it out to be or thought it was going to be. Honestly, again, personally speaking, I had zero expectations for Ronda versus Nikki, because Nikki, she's not terrible. She's not nearly as bad as people have made her out to be, but she's not great either. Becky versus Charlotte was the best match on the show by a country mile, and was easily the best built match on the show too. But the reason why Nikki and Ronda went on in the main event, was because they were the two bigger names. People know Ronda Rousey, and for whatever it's worth, Nikki Bella is a big name as well. Easily one of the best, one of the biggest stars they've had in that women's division for the last number of years now. Maybe not the best in the ring, but in the best in terms of promotion and, star power and stuff like that. So again, I get why they did that as the main event. So I'm not complaining. It's just really a nitpick, if anything. You can't always go with the best match in the main event. You should, ideally, I get it, but The Rock and Cena, for example, the match was not nearly as good as Jericho and Punk at WrestleMania 28, but Cena and Rock were the two biggest names on that show. That was the dream match. That was the match. Not to say Ronda and Nikki Bella was a dream match, but they were the ones that show is built around. So I get it. But again, going on to Ronda and Nikki here, I thought they had a pretty entertaining main event. For the 15 minutes it was given, I thought this was perfect. Becky and Charlotte went a while. That went about a half an hour, which it should have. It didn't even feel like a half an hour, which was the cool thing. Ronda and Nikki, I thought it got the right amount of time. It didn't go overly long, but it wasn't ridiculously short either. Because remember, Ronda beat Alexa Bliss in like 4 minutes at the SummerSlam pay-per-view to win the Raw Women's Championship, as she should have, because Alexa Bliss, as good as she is no threat to Ronda Rousey. And they were making Ronda out to be unstoppable. So again, I get it. Nikki Bella is supposed to be one of their biggest stars in the last number of years, so it made sense for her to go the distance with Ronda, get some offense in over Ronda, for her to take, for Ronda to take as much of a beating as she did at the hands of Nikki. Was that a little unrealistic? Yeah, it was. But at least she had the Brie Bella interference going for her, so it kind of made sense. Brie did not wrestle on the show. She was really just serving as a manager for Nikki Bella, which was a good role for her. I thought she played it well. And the match overall, I thought was very good. Honestly, the best Nikki Bella match I've probably ever seen. And the matches with Charlotte a few years ago were good. Crazy to think that was 4 years ago, but that was really her last run. I mean, no, not really. She came back on SmackDown in 2016. Had some good matches then, too. Nikki Bella, again, I've never been their biggest fan, the biggest fan of the Bella Twins, although I fucking watched the reality show. In the ring, they've never been the greatest, but Nikki anyway. Bray's been fucking terrible for years. Nikki really improved, and during that 2016 run, and I've talked about this before here on WrestleRant and in other places too, Nikki had some great matches when she came back from that neck surgery. With Carmella, she had great matches with Natalya as well. Feuds I normally wouldn't care about, but she made me care. And even although it wasn't a great match, her and Cena versus Miz and Maurice, that feud was a lot of fun. So I thought she did well here. If this is the last match Nikki Bella ever has, then she went out on a high note. She may have, I'm not sure if she wrestled again after this, definitely not on TV. She may have for like the house shows and stuff. I feel like they talked about this either on Total Bellas or Total Divas. I think Total Bellas many months ago, where I think she was going to work the house shows after the pay-per-view. I don't think she did, though. This might have been her last match. And if so, she went out on a high note. This match was great. A great way for her to go out. And Ronda Rousey retained as she should have. So it closed out an awesome show. They did the typical shot of all the women on the stage celebrating together, which made no sense. I mean, it was a cool visual. But then, like, the next day, we're supposed to think that Becky and Ronda have this grudge. And that's really when the feud started, to the day after Evolution, when we were shown a video that took place right after Evolution that same night, backstage, with Ronda and Becky kind of going at it a little bit verbally. So they were like teasing tension the night after the pay-per-view. going into Survivor Series with Raw versus SmackDown. Yet they were like embracing each other at the Evolution show, which again, I get it. It's out of character. It's like the curtain call. Kind of like what they did with the Four Horsewomen a few years ago at TakeOver Brooklyn. Again, I get it, but it was still a little silly in retrospect, thinking that we were supposed to take Becky and Ronda seriously as a real feud, which people ended up doing anyway with their work on Twitter and in the ring and on the mic. Like literally a day after they were hugging at Evolution. But putting that aside, this was an awesome show. Absolutely well worth the watch again on the WWE Network. A lot of good matches. The best match on the show, easily Becky versus Charlotte, but the entire show is well worth the watch again. The 3 hours fly by. It clocks in at around 3 hours and 16 minutes. I know that sounds specific, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I just remember looking at the time a bunch of times before I was done watching it. Not in a bad way, but just to see how long it was. So it's around 3 hours and 15 minutes. It was cool to see Trish and Lita back. The Battle Royal had some nice moments. Toni Storm and Io Shirai was very well wrestled. The 6-woman tag team match was much better than I thought it would be. Shayna and Kairi had a great match too. Becky and Charlotte, really, really good match. My favorite match, one of my favorite matches from 2018. If not my favorite match, definitely my favorite women's match of 2018. And then the main event, Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella, was entertaining as well. So that was Evolution 2018. It's a shame they have yet to bring the pay-per-view back. Some might argue, oh, you don't want to ruin the specialness of it. It was a one-time only thing. Let's not go back on it, blah, blah, blah. Fuck that. Like, if they're going to keep doing these Saudi shows without the women, we should have at least 1 or 2 of these shows a year. Maybe not 2. That would be overkill. But, if they're going to keep doing these Saudi shows without the women on the card, fuck it. Yeah, they should absolutely do Evolution for that reason alone every single year. They should have the women more on the actual pay-per-views anyway. I agree with that. I mean, they had like 3 pay-per-views at the Hell in a Cell show. So, I mean, not that that's enough, but people are saying, oh, half the card should be women, half the card should be men. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because they have way more men than they do women. That's just the way that it works. That's just what it is. But I will say they should do at least 1 Evolution show a year. If they're going to keep doing this Saudi shit with no women on the card, and I know the division isn't now what it was a year ago. I get that Ronda Rousey isn't around, but if you build up these women enough, you can still do a lot of good matches with the women of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and NXT UK. I see nothing wrong with that at all. NXT alone, I think they're doing an all-women's event, like a house show in Jacksonville, Florida, I think, or somewhere in Florida in December, which is cool. Which I would absolutely buy a ticket to if I lived in the area, because their division is super strong. You throw in them, you throw in the women from NXT UK as well. They have a lot of good women over there. Piper Niven, Jazzy Gabber, Ginny, Kaylee Ray, Tegan Knox just came back to NXT, Dakota Kai. NXT UK also has Zaya Brookside. I'm a big fan of hers. They have a lot of good talent over there as well, so don't count them out either. But I think an Evolution 2 could work if done the right way, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you guys for checking out my review of Evolution 2018. I appreciate it. Definitely on the longer side. We ran today around 33 minutes. Holy shit. Thank you guys for sticking around that long. If you indeed did, I appreciate it. I'm not sure when the next WrestleRant video will be. Probably at some point, either next weekend or the week after that. I'm going to try to do them more regularly. I just did these last 2 in the last 2 days with Halloween Havoc 1990 and Evolution just because of anniversaries of when they happened. Yesterday being the 29-year anniversary of Halloween Havoc 1990, and today being the 1-year anniversary of Evolution 2018. So whenever I see fit, I will bring back WrestleRant to review whatever show I would like from ECW, WCW, WWE, NXT, or even Impact. So stay tuned on that front. Until next time, guys, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Like I said at the start of the show, new WWE Network and show tomorrow, reviewing Table for 3 with APA and Teddy Long. Until then, guys, I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.